Well, hello there. Welcome back to this channel. Today I'm going to be talking about a franchise that's very near and dear to my heart, the Transformers, and I'm just going to go through them and rank them. This is going to be a tier list that I think it'll be controversial because I have some pretty out there opinions on these movies. I'm going to rank these not on like objective writing quality or movie quality. I'm going to basically be ranking these based on how much I personally like this movie and how much I want to rewatch it. That means that some of the movies that are, objectively lower quality or considered lower quality by like the consensus on the internet are going to be a lot higher for me, and that's probably purely for nostalgia reasons, and I'll point that out when I get to those movies. So, without further ado, let's get started with the original. I am a little bit young for this movie. This came out a long time before I was born, so I never really had a lot of nostalgia for it. I actually watched this movie for the first time really recently as an adult, so that really colors my opinions. In my opinion, there is a good movie hiding in it. This is really fun. There's a lot of like classic 80s rock songs. There's that Weird Al song, Dare to Be Stupid, Dare to Be Stupid, and you can really tell that this movie has influenced a lot of the franchise going forward. But what I was struck when I watched this is all of the things that people remember from this movie happen in like the first 10 minutes, right? With Optimus dying, with basically the entire cast of Autobots and Decepticons dying, Starscream taking over, Galvatron being born. That is the first like 10 to 20 minutes of this movie. And the rest of it is following Hot Rod and Spike's kid. And, I'm not going to say it was a bad movie, but I just don't have a lot of nostalgia for it. And I would say beyond those first 10 to 20 minutes, I don't think there's a lot of like super memorable moments in this film. I was never really super engaged with the plot after that certain amount of time, and this is a symptom of just following characters that I really am not attached to and I don't really care about because they wanted to bring out this whole new toy line and kill off all the old toys. I'm not really attached to Rodimus in any way, and so I just kind of found the back half of the movie a little bit of a drag. I think this is a solid like B tier. It's iconic. There are so many great moments, but there's a lot of it that just doesn't hold up for me super well. Now we're moving on to some movies that I am really, really nostalgic for, and that is the Bay films. I know there's a lot of people that don't like these movies, and fair enough. If you're a G1er, I can see why you wouldn't like these. Michael Bay really, really changed up a lot of this franchise. But again, I have nostalgia for these. I really love these. And it all starts with the first Transformers movie. I mean, this movie is so good. That scene where we get the Autobots coming to Earth, the arrival to Earth playing in the background, it's just so iconic. I love the looks of all the Autobots, especially Optimus Prime, Megatron, Bumblebee, all of them in their like '07 glory. This movie is amazing. This is a movie that out of all of them does the best at selling the Decepticons as a horrific threat. Dark of the Moon does this a little bit, but nothing can really compare to that original shot where Blackout is coming into the military base. You can really feel the horror and how small we are as humans compared to these Transformers. Michael Bay does that really well, and that really shines through in this movie. I think honestly it deserves to go in A tier for me. I don't think this is absolute best S tier in this franchise. There are movies that come after it that are better, but I think it gets a solid A from me. Next is Revenge of the Fallen.
You're so weak.
Now, this is a movie that lots of people really, really don't like. And I wouldn't say that I'm one of them. I think that the first like arc of Sam going to college is kind of boring and drags. But the back half of this movie is really fun. I love all the action sequences by the pyramid. You get some good moments with Sam and Michaela and Simmons. It's a really, really fun ride in that back half of the movie. Although the plot, like, as we'll come to see with Michael Bay, is pretty convoluted. It can go into weird places, and there are some moments that I'm just like, did you have to really go there? Tisk tisk, enemy scrotum. Yeah. For that reason, I can't really put it up with the first one. The quality of this movie did take a huge dip in my opinion, but I honestly think I'd put it maybe in B tier. I think it's probably ahead of the 86 movie just because I like the Bayformers in general more than G1. That's just my bias talking though. And now we come to Dark of the Moon.
All I ever wanted was the survival of our race. You must see why I had to betray you. You didn't betray me. You betrayed yourself. No, Optimus!
And you guys, like, this is the movie. This is the like basically just peak Bayformers right here. Everything that Michael Bay did in those last two movies is dialed up to 11. The final battle of this movie is amazing. I've always just loved it so much. I'm a Chicago native. Just the final battle of this movie while they're just destroying my home city is just so fun to watch. I love this movie so much. Absolute S tier of a movie. You cannot tell me otherwise. Now we come to Beast Hunters, Predacons Rising from Transformers Prime.
Above all, do not lament my absence. For in my spark, I know that this is not the end.
So I'm really, really torn on this movie. The thing is, I don't think this is particularly well written at all. It doesn't have a super engaging plot. I could not tell you what happened in this movie, like seriously, but I do remember enjoying it. And I think that's just because I really love Transformers Prime. And so these characters, they're like a warm and fuzzy blanket, when you see Bulkhead and RC and Bumblebee and Optimus Prime from that Prime TV show. But the movie itself isn't super memorable. I mean, I guess Megatron has like a pretty cool design in it. When he becomes Galvatron, those are some cool ideas. But the plot overall is just forgettable. So I think this is our first C tier, even though I have so much nostalgia and love Transformers Prime as a show so much. They've been way better written in the show itself. This movie was a good ending for these characters, and I will say it's an ending. These character stories end with this movie. I don't count RID 2015 as a continuation of Prime because it is absolutely terrible. Just getting to that ending isn't super memorable and not something that I particularly, would go and rewatch again. And then we come to Age of Extinction.
Calling all Autobots. Calling all Autobots.
Whoa! Oh my god!
Honestly, I know people don't like this movie. I like this movie. it's just one of those things. I think it just hit me at the exact right time. But like this movie is one of those that like I can't even explain it. Objectively, it's not a very good movie. I don't really like the transforming effects of the transformium, the weird cube things that they turn into. That's not very fun. But for some reason, this is one of those movies where like I just know like a lot of the lines to. I just come and revisit often. The Hong Kong fight is just so fun. There's that scene with all the like Dinobots and Prime riding on Grimlock's back, coming to rescue them, and he's breathing fire, and it's so cool. And I'm just like, oh, it just gets my inner child racing. I saw this as a kid, and it was the coolest thing ever. This is not like the best movie objectively, but I keep going back and rewatching it because I just love it. I have so much nostalgia for it. And that's the great thing about these movies. They have so much spectacle. Michael Bay, say what you will about him, he's a really good director of spectacle. All these like incredible practical effects that he has in these movies, you can really, really believe that these transforming robots are there in person. And that's incredible. Some of these later live action movies, they don't sell you that well on these robots, which is crazy because I think the last of the Bay movies came out like a decade ago, and it's still way better than the current ones that we get. Whew. And then we come to Transformers The Last Night.
I've come for that staff. Give it to me.
I've given the Bayformers a pass, I know a lot of people don't like Revenge of the Fallen and Age of Extinction all that much. I like those movies. Revenge of the Fallen less so. But Transformers The Last Night is like absolutely F tier. I don't know what thought process went into this movie. It is absolutely terrible. There's this weird like King Arthur plotline where the Transformers came to Earth to help King Arthur win a war with the robot dragon. It's so weird. There's so many different plot lines going on in this movie. At one point, it's revealed that Bumblebee was fighting Hitler in World War II, and then we just like move past it. It's just a jumbled mess of a movie. There's some like I guess decent ideas in it, but none of them are executed particularly well. There's just a really long stretch of this movie where we're not getting any Transformers action. We're just off with Mark Wahlberg and Bumblebee to England to make sense of this King Arthur tale. And also like the evil Optimus Prime thing could have been really, really cool, and they just didn't do anything about it in this movie. The entire movie is just cameos of Optimus Prime being, ooh, I'm evil now. I'm going to go to Earth and kick the shit out of Bumblebee. And then when we actually get to that fight at the end of the movie, it's like 2 seconds and then he's good again because he hears Bumblebee's voice. And it's like, all right, cool. I guess this is what you did with like a really good idea. This movie feels like Michael Bay was just like not trying anymore. I know there was supposed to be like this thing where, oh, we set up a Transformers writers room for 14 new Transformers sequels, which I call bullshit on that. I think they just combined all 14 of those movies into this one, and it is absolutely terrible. I never want to watch this movie again. I go back and rewatch all of the other Bay movies, but never The Last Night, because it is absolutely terrible. And honestly, like, I'm insulted that Michael Bay thought that this was an acceptable movie to put out on the screen. I can forgive a lot of things from Michael Bay, but not Transformers The Last Night. I just can't forgive that. And then we come to Bumblebee.
Where's B-127?
Sorry I'm late. Hit a little traffic.
And like, oh my god, this movie is S tier. This is, I think, the breath of fresh air that the Transformers franchise needed. After all these Bayformers movies getting increasingly more and more complicated, you having these weird jokes with like Mark Wahlberg and Shia LaBeouf, and they're doing like weird sex jokes and like kind of racist caricatures, which I can look past a lot of that because I really, really love the spectacle of those earlier Bayformers movies. But the gimmick does get old at a certain point, and you could see them getting really tired in The Last Night. Bumblebee was a huge breath of fresh air into this franchise. The designs had been getting more humanoid and complicated as you go further into the franchise, and what Bumblebee decided to do was simplify all of them, go back to a more G1 aesthetic, which I think was a really, really good choice on the part of this movie. Just that Cybertron scene alone is a masterpiece. It's amazing, and I want to watch that scene on a loop. And even when Bumblebee gets to Earth, it's a really heartwarming story with Charlie and with like John Cena as like sort of maybe kind of an antagonist. So it's just a really like fun story. I do think the best part of this movie is the opening scene on Cybertron, but that's just because that scene is so good. The rest of the movie is still, pretty good, but I don't think it really approaches Dark of the Moon for me just because I love the spectacle of that movie so much, and, Chicago got to represent home team, but it's a really, really close second. It's just right there. That movie is awesome. Also, the best villains in the franchise, Shatter and Dropkick. I'm just going to mention them there. They're so cool. They're triple changers. They have personality. It's just amazing. And, after that banger of the movie, I was so excited for a sequel. I thought that they might continue with the Bumblebee storyline. You have this new reboot. You have a breath of fresh air into the franchise. I thought they would continue it on. But we have Rise of the Beasts.
This cannot be. Calling all Autobots!
This movie is fine. It's nothing to write home about. I feel like this is the most generic movie on this list. And I know for some people that would mean that this is above the likes of like Revenge of the Fallen and Age of Extinction, just because like those are objectively like bad movies. They're not like particularly well written or profound or anything. And Rise of the Beasts is just like an okay movie, and I think that's enough for some people, but it's not enough for me. I put it in D tier, and honestly, it's just because this movie is really, really boring. There's nothing in it that grabs my attention. The designs are like the Bumblebee designs, but just like downgraded a little bit. The VFX isn't like exceptionally great. There's not a whole lot of spectacle. Even in the final scene, it's just a featureless Marvel CGI landscape, where they're fighting a faceless army. Scourge isn't that great of a villain, nothing to write home about. So this movie is just meh, And I think that just makes it worse than a lot of the other movies on this list. Because at least Age of Extinction and Revenge of the Fallen are entertaining. Like, they're bad movies, objectively, I can agree with that. But they're entertaining. You, laugh your way through those movies. At least I do. And I love the spectacle and the action. None of that is there for Rise of the Beast. It's just overstuffed with characters. Nothing gets its chance to shine. There's no spectacle. The villain is boring. It's just beige. It's just beige. And that's okay with some people, but it's not okay with me. And then we get to the last movie, Transformers 1.
I am Megatron! Arise! Optimus Prime.
I think I agree with literally everyone here. I didn't think that they could make like basically the perfect Transformers movie, and by God, they absolutely did. This goes in S tier, the top of S tier. This movie has just gorgeous animation. The character designs are great. They're like just enough G1, but not completely G1. They take inspiration from a lot of different parts of this franchise. I see a lot of like Transformers Prime inspiration, specifically with Arachnid and the Viacons. It's just it feels like home to hear that Transformers Prime theme again. And this is just such a good story of friends to enemies, where we have Orion Pax and D16 who start off as friends, and they like slowly drift apart after something shatters their world and become Optimus and Megatron. It feels believable, and it feels like something that these characters would do. It's just so brilliantly written, and I never expected that Transformers 1 was going to be that, because that trailer when it came out last year was absolutely terrible, and I had zero expectations for this movie going in, but it exceeded all of them. The villain, Sentinel Prime, oh my god, he's amazing, but in just the most sinister, disgusting way. He basically, like, invented slavery and created this class system for Cybertronians by ripping the T-cogs out of their chests. That is just so dark on so many levels. It's insane. This is, I think, honestly the best villain in the entire franchise. Like, out of all of these movies, I would say that the Sentinel Prime in this movie is just the most hateable villain out of all of these. This is just like as perfect as a Transformers movie can be. And I can see flaws in this. The switch for D16 to Megatron is a little bit quick. Chris Hemsworth is a little bit shaky on the voice acting, but I've forgiven so much on these other movies because Transformers as a concept, I have so much nostalgia for these characters, for this idea of cars turning into robots. It's just so cool, and it helps me overlook the flaws in a lot of these movies. And I'm comfortable with saying that Transformers 1 is the best out of the lot. And I really, really, really hope that Paramount gives it a sequel. I'd much rather they do that than that like weird Rise of the Beast G.I. Joe crossover they're doing, because I have like zero interest in that, especially after Rise of the Beast was just such a boring movie. So yeah, that's my thoughts on basically every Transformers movie. Let me know in the comments down below what I got right and what I got wrong. And I'm really interested to see how my list stacks up with yours. Like and subscribe for more videos. Catch you in the next one. Thanks.